In the high mountains of the Himalayas lies Tibet, a land of monasteries, prayer flags, and centuries old Buddhist traditions. For generations, the spiritual and political leader of Tibet had been the 14th Dalai Lama. But by the late 1950s, tension filled the air in Tibet's capital, Lhasa. 9 years earlier, in 1950, the newly established People's Republic of China had sent its army into Tibet. Chinese authorities claimed they were liberating the region, but many Tibetans saw it as an occupation. For nearly a decade, resentment simmered beneath the surface. By early 1959, resistance had erupted in parts of eastern Tibet. Thousands of refugees and fighters had fled toward Lhasa, carrying stories of monasteries destroyed and rebellions crushed. Then came the moment that would ignite the uprising. On 10th March 1959, Chinese military officials invited the Dalai Lama to attend a theatrical performance at the Chinese military headquarters outside Lhasa. But there was a strange condition. He must come alone, without his traditional bodyguards. Rumors spread quickly across the city. Many Tibetans feared the invitation was a trap, that the Chinese planned to abduct their leader and take him to Beijing. By morning, the streets of Lhasa erupted with activity. Let's say tens of thousands of Tibetans surrounded the palace, forming a human shield to protect their leader. They shouted slogans demanding freedom and declaring that the Dalai Lama must not leave the palace. Barricades appeared across Lhasa's narrow streets. Armed volunteers joined civilians, preparing to defend the city if Chinese troops advanced. Over the next few days, the tension only grew. Women marched through the streets carrying banners reading Tibet for Tibetans. Protesters burned Chinese flags and demanded independence. Meanwhile, Chinese artillery units began moving into position around the city. The people protecting the palace knew the danger was coming. On 17 March, two artillery shells exploded near the Norbulinka palace. Inside, Tibetan leaders realized the situation had become impossible. That night, the Dalai Lama made a decision that would change Tibet forever. Disguised as a soldier carrying a rifle over his shoulder, the 23-year-old leader slipped out of the palace under cover of darkness. His small group began a secret journey across the Himalayas toward India. Back in Lhasa, the uprising turned into open war. Chinese forces moved into the city with artillery and heavy weapons. Barricades were smashed, monasteries were shelled, and Tibetan resistance fighters were overwhelmed. Within days, the rebellion was crushed. Thousands of Tibetans were killed in the fighting and the crackdown that followed. 2 weeks later, after a dangerous journey across the mountains, the Dalai Lama finally reached India. The Indian government granted him asylum, and he later established a Tibetan government in exile in Dharamshala. Since that day in 1959, the Dalai Lama has never returned to Tibet. But every year, on 10th of March, Tibetans around the world remember the day their people rose in defiance. A day when an entire nation stood between its leader and the army. Follow on this day for more forgotten stories that shaped the world.